everybody. It's good afternoon in all of our time zones, actually. My name is Jennifer West, and I am the host for Take Note, this podcast, which is kindly sponsored by Tonley Music. And I am also the artistic director of Muse West Concerts. And we are grateful to do our work on the occupied and very much current territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish nations. They have been making music on these lands since before colonial time was measured, and we are grateful for that. And we encourage all of our listeners to find out about where they are situated, whose traditional territory are they on. And I'm going to introduce my guests. My guests are in the order that I see them on these Zoom squares. I'm going to start with Dr. Jared Miller. And Jared, where are you coming to us from today?
I'm currently in the ancestral homelands of the Saura, the Catawba, the Kigawi, and the Sisipaha peoples. I think I pronounced all of that right. I'm new to this area, which is also known as Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And so I'm still getting used to the territorial land acknowledgements here. But yes, Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
And what do you do for a day job in Winston-Salem?
I do it all. I'm a professor at the University of North Carolina School of the Arts. And then I also have continued my career as a composer. So I do a lot of writing music and a lot of teaching.
Amazing. Next on my screen is Alice Ping Yee Ho. Alice, you're in Toronto today. How are you doing?
Great. Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm in the city of Toronto. It was snowing pretty badly earlier. Yeah, so I look forward to coming to Vancouver next week and, meeting the fantastic pianist and Chen the first time, and the concert hearing Jared premiere. So it's very exciting.
And Alice, you're a pianist and composer.
Correct. I don't have a teaching job, so I'm lucky. I basically pretty much lucky, pretty much full-time doing what I like. A number of commissions and some performances sometimes.
Amazing. And last but not least is the third pianist composer on this podcast. Actually, everyone here is a pianist composer except for me. I only compose like 4-bar melodies that are from the Baroque era to help my students with theory. But last but not least, from New York, we have pianist Chen. How are you today?
Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Chen. I'm so excited to join everyone for this podcast and for the concert next Friday.
Wonderful. And we recently had a chance to meet up in New York, Han. It was great to see you at Momofuku and try their amazing ramen.
For sure.
And even more amazing was being able to enjoy the Berlin Philharmonic, playing Mahler 7. What a way to hear a group like that in Carnegie Hall. We actually are going to start our podcast on a bit of a solemn note. We would like to offer sincere condolences to all of the families, friends, and communities who are grieving the events at Club Q nightclub last night in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And we offer our solidarity to people who are grieving and hurting over the loss of lives due to both discrimination and gun violence. And we offer our sincere thoughts to those people. And we hope for things like this to not keep happening. And we just want to begin with that small note. So I want to start by talking to Jared about his piece, which is called Erode, Evolve, Jared, tell us the inspiration for this piece.
Thanks, Jennifer. So just first of all, to continue with what you just said, I never thought that I would ever have to talk about this particular piece the day after a mass shooting at a gay club. an LGBTQ plus club. It's bizarre, and it's something I hope I never have to do again, because I hope nothing like this ever happens again. I hope that the US government does some serious things about gun laws and providing a greater access to mental health services to prevent things like this from happening, because it's just a tragedy on so many different levels. So with that context, my piece Erode ? Evolve ? It channels the feelings that many within the LGBTQ plus community have, including myself. That was really well articulated, actually, in a New York Times article that came out this summer. And it's sort of about this dichotomy of emotions surrounding the disappearance of LGBTQ plus neighborhoods in big cities in North America and beyond. On one hand, a lot of LGBTQ plus individuals feel that acceptance of these identifiers has gotten to a point that they no longer feel a need to live in a queer neighborhood, and no longer feel a need for the sort of refuge that provides. And so in certain ways, there's something very beautiful about that, and how far many of us have come in this society. On the other hand, there's also some sort of negative feelings and negative implications of this. A lot of queer neighborhoods have become gentrified and rents have skyrocketed. So businesses can no longer function, or local businesses can no longer function. Individuals who've been part of these neighborhoods and part of these communities for decades and even generations are forced out of their homes because they can no longer afford to live in those homes. And there's this feeling that the hard-won political power that the LGBTQ plus community has, or has fought for many decades and generations, will now be decentralized as geographically LGBTQ plus individuals are decentralized and no longer in the same physical neighborhood. So in terms of channeling this this piece and some of the emotions in this piece, I wanted to sort of juxtapose the very sort of euphoric and almost joyful qualities of electronic dance music, which has sort of painted the soundscape of LGBTQ plus establishments for decades and decades, and music that I'm intimately familiar with, juxtaposing that to things that sound very machine-like and very much almost like construction sounds. And so, yeah, the piece, it sort of is this gradually morphing thing, just sort of like the way a neighborhood gradually changes over time. And every time there's something that's joyful, it's subverted into something mechanical, and every time there's something mechanical, it turns into something joyful. So ultimately, I'm sort of not answering the question as to whether this is a positive or negative, this sort of decentralization. I'm more just continuing to ask the question. Although I must say, in today's, just in light of the last night's very recent tragedy, I would hope that there is, gathering spaces for LGBTQ plus individuals to mourn together and to organize together and to feel empowered together in the same space. So yes, that is what my piece is about. And Chen is doing the most amazing job playing it. He's just the best. Thanks, Han.
And Han, you just recently received the score, and what's it like learning this piece?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I'm very thankful for these commissions, the two commissions we're about to talk about today. Both of the pieces connect with my personal feelings so deeply that I have this feeling that I can really convey through the music. It's so special for classical pianists like me, who usually cannot really identify so much in the music themselves. But with today's context, I feel learning these two pieces bring me to a place where I rethink the power of music. For playing this music, I feel there is something that I am trying to prove for myself and for the people that I align with, for who they are and what they do. And I feel really lucky for that. Learning Jared's piece is a very special feeling for me. I think Jared did such a great job posting the question without giving a definite answer. So you can feel these two powers just like confronting each other, but also cohabitate in the piece at the same time. And learning the piece, you can feel how the music is taking you through two totally different polarized ideas, but coming together as one thing. And I think that's the most beautiful thing that we can have nowadays. And for what I learned in this piece, I also learned more about myself, because I myself have different ideas sometimes about the subject Jared was talking about, for the space, the LGBTQ plus space that people live in, people go to, and people rely on, and how they disappeared, especially after the pandemic, about how people are scattered around, but also yearning for another way to connect. And I myself experience all of this and feel strongly about, and I feel so lucky to have an opportunity to express what I feel in such a piece. So that's mainly how I feel about learning the piece, and I can't wait to share it next Friday.
Thank you, Han. Alice, you've written a wonderful piece, which is supported by the Canada Council for the Arts and the City of Vancouver Cultural Services. Shout out to both of them for their very generous support. And Alice, tell us a bit about your story. Are you from Toronto? Where are you from originally?
I was born in Hong Kong. I'm Chinese Canadian, and I lived in Toronto for many years. I studied in the States before I immigrated to Canada. I graduated from Indiana University, Bloomington, many years ago. I was a pianist, and then I changed my path to be a composer. Going back to, Jared talked so beautifully about the global situation, the political, about the disappearance or the struggle of LGBTQ communities is quite moving. And I think as a composer, I do echo a lot of the situation that surrounded us. So when Jennifer, you approached me for the commissioning idea, you talk about migration, which is quite to my heart. So in my construction, there are two works. The first work is, I was affected by the outbreak of the Ukrainian war at the beginning of the year, which is quite horrible. So, and the second piece is actually a look back, across time from the perspective of my Chinese culture about, comparing life that with a mythological bird, which is a nightingale, with the freedom from heaven, so free and a messenger from God, but it is a migration being. So the two pieces is sort of a set of a tone poem that reflect my impression as an immigrant, actually, from Hong Kong to the States and now in Canada. So Chinese Nightingale is inspired by sort of a folk mythology about this nightingale that sings to the emperor, and the emperor was so greedy that he wanted to put the nightingale in a cage so that she can sing for him forever. But then the nightingale gets so sick because she was captive and lost her freedom. So eventually, the emperor realized, only love can rescue the nightingale. So he let the nightingale go free, and the nightingale become a very powerful symbol that she actually lived thousands of years and seeing all the human stories, the suffering, the chaos, at the same time, the resilience of hope. People still farm and still, have a good life, and there's war, but it's just everlasting. So it's more like imaginary poetic story that I try to interpret in the music. And I think this is my second work that I wrote for solo piano in electronics. And one thing that I like to explore, I love having a very out of the world a sound of some Asian instruments, evocative sounds of things that is familiar and yet not familiar to us, and combine live piano playing in a poetic and also virtuosic moments. And I have actually, before I compose a piece, I watch a few videos of Chen show me, and I think it's just so fantastic. And he's so there's so many sides of him. So I hope the piece will be will capture one side of Chen's specialty, maybe related to his heritage, the same as mine. We are Chinese, and see how the world in a more poetic way, and hope the piece will be a very imaginative and I don't know, maybe an attractive piece for the audience to interpret migration in a sense.
I want to jump in and say that that's why it is so amazing to have pieces written for you. It's like they actually listen to you play and look for your ability on the piano and incorporate that in the music. I feel that is such a wonderful and special thing, and I really want to thank both composers for getting to know my playing and also using that in the music. I really feel Alice's music, the piece, The Chinese Nightingale, is a very powerful piece. It is almost like a historic story of all different times put together in this piece. It is a 10-minute long piece, but it feels like it has been through so many things within that 10 minutes. From the very beginning, the very mythological beginning, actually, to take you to this very lively and energetic, fast part, which is also very difficult for me to play. But all of this put together, I think it's a very, very interesting and special piece. And as I said, both pieces relate to my personal experience so much. As an immigrant myself, I feel I can't really understand what Alice is talking about. For this nightingale to go to all different places, different times, but still seeing hope and want to continue for this idea of living well and living the life and being loved and loving. All of this is so special and so important for our time right now. So thank you very much for offering me these two very special pieces.
This is amazing for me to hear this, because it's really different than preparing a Schubert sonata, because Schubert didn't meet you.
Oh, but that's the first piece you heard me play. So.
That's great. It stuck with me. And it's so, this is, I guess my next question is for kind of anybody, actually. And I'll just remind our audience, if you've tuned in a little bit later, who we have here. We have Dr. Jared Miller, who is a composer and pianist based in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We have Alice Ping Yee Ho, a composer-pianist based in Toronto, and Chen, composer-pianist based in New York City. So if you're just joining us, those are our guests today. And I'll throw this question out. Basically, maybe I'll throw this to Jared. Jared, when you get commissioned and you know who will be giving the premiere, does that influence how you write it? Like, do you write for the performer? Do you write based on your ideas and your inspiration, or is it just a wonderful recipe of all of those above?
I try and strike a balance between, what I research the performer. I listen to what they do. I look at the sorts of music that they're interested in playing. I talk with them about what they're interested in playing. With Han, we've known each other since like 2010 or something, when we both started at Juilliard. So like I'm already quite familiar with Han's brilliant playing, and so but I still like clicked on all of his YouTube videos and did some research. And we did have some preliminary discussions about sorts of things back in the spring as to what this piece could be inspired by. So yeah, we, I think there is a sort of back and forth, definitely. And that sort of goes with all of my pieces. You sort of have to take each project as one thing and sort of live in that world and figure out what you're going to do within that world and the possibilities but constraints that world presents to you creatively.
And Alice, what's your process when you get commissioned? You know who the performer will be, you know the instrumentation, and you know how long the piece will be. Where do you go from there?
I think every commission is different, as Jared described. Sometimes I actually get very difficult assignments. Like for instance, the opera Chinatown just premiere 2 months ago is very specific, with the language, with the even the musical approach is very that like dictated almost. But I always found this is it's a good thing, push me out of the comfort zone. Sometimes I would take it as a challenge, and actually that enriched myself as a composer as well. I think for Han, it is really a luxury for me because I don't know him. I don't have the luxury of knowing him, so I just learned through the YouTube and through Jennifer. And I know he's such a brilliant pianist. And so basically, I feel I'm so free to do anything I like with my visions. And I don't think, actually, Han and I never discussed any specific details about technical things, but I would imagine the stuff I composed, he would have no problem. For my piece, One Essence is not exactly very conventional kind of piano techniques. There are a lot of repeated notes because it's sort of reminiscent. Some Chinese instrument, like the pipa and the zheng, which is basically single note, but so many different nuances. So this is one specialty. But Han did it so well. So I'm really lucky. Yeah, I think for me, I have so many different projects with so many different organizations and performers. Sometimes they let me go free, and sometimes they have very specific desire. So I would think this is good training for myself. I feel I always learn and grow with my assignments and the commissions.
That's so cool to hear that perspective. And Han, how do you feel Alice's piece captures sort of transnational Chinese identity? Because for our listeners out there who are kind of new to learning about these geopolitics, like we have China, we have Taiwan, we have Hong Kong, and we have people that share a common cultural and somewhat linguistic history. But again, this group of people has moved, and that's influenced how they has influenced their language, their food, their musical traditions. Do you feel like Alice's piece has kind of captured like not only this beautiful traditional story of this nightingale held by the emperor, but also like how people identify as Chinese today?
Well, I want to go back to say about the commissioning, because I feel as a pianist, commissioning is something I personally really, really treasure for this kind of relationship with the composer, and to know the composer in such a deep level. It is a very, very valuable experience to have. And both Jared and Alice are such great pianists. They write so well for the piano. They can provide me so many possibilities on the keys. I feel it is something that is you only dream of, as a pianist. And we had the luxury to talk about ideas. With Jerry, we talk about this LGBTQ plus space that is so important for the community, for this political progress, and for its loss. And with Alice, we talk about the Chinese identity and about migration. Well, the mythological story that Alice was talking about is also something I learned when I was young, and I really can relate to this story. Also, especially how, like Jennifer said, that people do migrate a lot in that geography, and to nowadays that we immigrate to me to States and Alice to now in Canada. It's just something that we all feel globally, that everyone can connect to. People talk about, well, migration is not a big deal anymore nowadays. Like, people travel around, they go to places. But I want to say that it is something so special for a human being, especially when you create art, when you make music. It is at that time, at that space. And for a composer living in different place, even I would imagine like writing in your living room and your bedroom will feel totally different. Just like being at different places can influence you so much for your artistic output. And I don't think migration is something that is just happening nowadays globally so easily to get. And that does not mitigate the importance of us talking about this. And Alice is capturing that feeling through the lens of mythology, but to be honest, it's more a personal take on a lifelong story. And I feel Alice did such a great job for doing that. And like Alice mentioned, there are Chinese instruments in the electronic sound, and those instruments are the things that I also grew up with when I went to school in Shanghai. All this put together is just one of a kind. So I really enjoyed learning the two pieces.
Wonderful. Han, you have done some composing. What role does composing play in your life right now? Or are you too busy teaching and playing?
Well, I did stop composing for a while. My last piece was before the pandemic, and people talk about, oh, you have so much time during the pandemic, you might as well write. But for not so professional composer like me, it was more an artistic loss for me, that during the pandemic I lost the impetus to write, to create. Because you are, like I said, I do feel this importance of space for your geography. Your being at home is not inspiring for me, at least. I mean, not sure about other composers, but I did stop, and it is not playing a big role in my life right now. But I often think back about the time that I really, really want to write, because I didn't start composing in a professional way, saying that I was doing that for fun. And the very first few, the first few attempts were actually criticized by my piano teacher, meaning that why don't you use the time to practice, and instead you're writing pieces that no one's gonna play. Okay, that wasn't a very, very encouraging experience, but that's what I got. So for a good many years, composing was not something that I would bring up to the table to talk about. But then, of course, now I think back, I really miss the impetus to write, but also the impetus for new music. Now I just look at myself more of trying to, play more new music, to have more commissions, and to know more composers, to try to support their composition, their profession. And I'm really, really happy for doing that.
Wonderful. I have one last sort of serious question, and then we're going to get into some fun questions to close off our conversation. So, Jared, how you've been teaching quite a bit, and I've been very fortunate to have Jared mentor me, I guess, or like he's helped with my advanced harmony students, and I've been just blown away by your knowledge, but I've also been really impressed by how you create a safe space for the students to, if they don't know the answer or they're not able to identify something in the score, you just lead them there. And I know that you've worked with some pretty talented young composers. How do you, and I want to ask more specifically about the students you have that are really strong, how do you create a safe space for them to give their own creativity and to authentically produce their own work?
That's a tough question.
I know.
So, yeah, I mean, it's always a tricky balance to strike as a teacher, especially at the college level and at a really excellent school like the University of North Carolina School of the Arts. We have some extremely talented composers. And so, it's striking a balance between giving them constructive feedback when necessary, but then also encouraging them along when they're doing something that's really good. And, finding out what they want to be writing and what they want to explore in their music and sort of using that as a jumping off point can be really helpful in giving the students a space in which to explore their creativity and their ideas. It depends on the level of the composer as well. I mean, teaching an upper level undergrad and a graduate level composer, there I might focus more on what their individual voice might be. Whereas with younger composers, younger undergrads and even high school students, it's encouraging them along, but also building compositional technique, and really giving them the tools that will allow them to express themselves in whatever way they're able to. So it's a lot of striking balances in many different ways. And yeah, I mean, I hope that I give my students a safe space in which to create and which to explore their musical interests, because it can be really amazing when you start to see their compositional voice start to emerge.
That's awesome. We've come to the rapid fire round of questions part of the podcast, where I ask totally non-musically related questions that are completely ridiculous. So my question for everyone this round is, what are you watching on Netflix these days? I'll go first. I'm watching Suits.
Oh.
And I'm completely addicted because it's lawyers in New York, and it's literally lines up with all of my interests, and the writing is amazing. And I like to solve the cases before they do, but it doesn't work because Harvey's too smart. So Han, what are you watching on Netflix?
Well, oh my God. Actually, it's not on Netflix. I'm watching White Lotus right now. I'm just going back to the first season. I'm about to start the second season soon, but yeah, that's what I'm watching.
Okay, cool. Alice, what are you watching? Any movies or Netflix series these days?
Yeah, I'm into horror movies. Yeah. Last night, what did I watch? Yeah, Barbarian. I don't know whether you know that movie. It was pretty cool. And then I watched Smile, which is really cool.
Whoa.
Yeah, and now Netflix, I'm just finished the Unresolved Mystery, the new episode.
Wonderful. And Jared, what are you binging?
Oh, Han stole my answer of the White Lotus.
Wow.
Yes, there's a new episode tonight that I'm very excited. Last week, got exciting, so I can't wait to see what happens this week. Besides that, I've never watched American Horror Story before, but horror stuff is not my jam. People recommended to watch the latest season of American Horror Story,
I'm watching that.
which is set in New York in the 1980s, and it's cool. It's bizarre, but I'm enjoying it very much. Yes.
I want to
Amazing.
jump in. I didn't use that answer just because I'm not watching it right now because I want all the episodes to come out and then watch it on one night. I can't wait for that to come out every week.
That's gonna be a disturbing night. I think they are all out, Han. So you'll have a nice way to relax after this recital. Yeah.
For sure. And my last question is, I think we have some foodies on this call. I know two for sure. So what is either your favorite meal experience in Toronto or New York? I'll start with Alice. What's your favorite fancy meal you've had in Toronto or anywhere?
I love seafood. So in Toronto, there's some really incredible seafood restaurant. I think there's a lobsters cup house. The huge lobsters. Other than that, I like Korean food and I like ramen, sushi, and Vietnamese handful noodles. Everything.
You're coming to the right city next week.
Yeah. Looking forward. Yeah.
And Jared, you are my go-to. Actually, you and Han are both my go-tos for New York restaurant recommendations. So Jared, what has been your most magnificent meal that you enjoyed while living in New York?
Oh my God, the most magnificent. That's varies so much. I mean, two that I can think of. One was I completely lucked out just in the year 2018, and pretty much every grant that I applied to for a commission went through, and I got a few other really big projects. And so, from going to living, month to month, I had a little more financial stability. And so when I got my first big, grant, I splurged and I ordered delivery for a week because I never and it wasn't fancy stuff at all, but it was just such a luxury to be able to do that after not doing it for such a long time. So that was really fun, and I felt like garbage after a week of eating delivery, so I went back to doing normal groceries and stuff. And then I went for an amazing sushi meal when my brother was in town at a place called, the name is escaping me, but this really nice sushi place. We got omakase for the first time, and it was just so luxurious and delicious. And I miss sushi so much. This is a great place where I live, but they do not necessarily have any sushi. So I am looking forward to the next opportunity I have to eat sushi.
I know a city where we have some pretty good sushi if you ever want to. And
Yep.
Han, I know you must have an amazing culinary experience in New York that you'd like to share.
Yes, my best experience was with Jennifer West, where we went to Momofuku Noodle Bar right before we went to the Berlin Field. It was such an amazing experience. We had so much food and they were so good. And Jen ordered an extra egg in her noodle. So just to let you know.
I have just been basically, publicly now everybody knows I ordered the extra poached egg for my ramen. Thank you, Han.
You're welcome.
And if anybody wants to know, my favorite wine is Chardonnay. But Han didn't give everybody that detail yet. And I think one of my best restaurant experiences in New York had to be with Jared. In 2017, we joined some friends at Perry Street, which is about a couple blocks away from Carrie Bradshaw's Sex and the City apartment. And
What are you talking about? She lives on the Upper East Side.
really?
It's like where she lives, but her apartment is in the Village. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's funny though, because I watched the spin-off and just like that. And like, you know, I know that her apartment's in the Village, and I lived in the Village my last year of living in New York, and I couldn't like buy it that she lived on the Upper East Side anymore, even though her character does. Like I could only see the West Village, which was kind of funny.
Yeah, that's the background for sure. And Perry Street was such an amazing restaurant, and one of our friends knew the chef. So there were a few little gifts coming to the table, and it was amazing. So it has been great to speak with Jared Miller, Alice Ho, and Han Chen. And I am so grateful for these wonderful composers, pianists, and artists for digging deep into how our identities can be expressed through music. I am a grade 5 teacher in my real life. And one of the music curriculum objectives is students demonstrate that music is an outward expression of their identity. And I always wonder, how is that possible with these little elementary songs and games? But it's just a seed that planted and grows, because everybody here started somewhere. They started with piano lessons, they started with composition lessons, and the seed grows into what it is today. So very, very cool to hear this conversation. And everyone is invited to the world premiere by Jared Miller and Alice Ho, and it'll be performed by Han Chen on Friday, November 25th at 7:30 p.m. at St. Helens Anglican Church in Vancouver. And we really look forward to that special night. Thank you to all of our guests for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Thank you.